Hello there. In this video I'm going to show you how you can create this charm for a charm bracelet using Fluid Designer for 3D printing and one of our Egyptian hieroglyphic objects. So it's actually really a font, but we're going to use it to create a charm. And we're going to do that in Fluid Designer for 3D printing. Now we're going to use several objects, so if I just click Group Library here, that just refreshes this folder list. I'm going to use a connector, so I'm going to use this wire connector here with a 1.5mm diameter hole. That's to connect to the bracelet itself. I'm going to use a Egyptian font, so it's Egyptian hieroglyphics. And I'm going to use, as you can see, there's several objects here. I'm going to actually not use the parametric smart object in this instance. I'm going to use this Egyptian hieroglyphics, letter A, that's from the Western keyboard, and I'm going to use the 2D version. So if I just drag and drop that onto the workspace, you can buy this object from our shop at fluiddesigner.co.uk, and as that stands, that should print. And if we look at it, we can see it's about 24mm across in each direction. The grid's 20mm. Now I'm just going to switch on screencast keys, so any key presses I make should be displayed down here. And what we're going to do is we're going to put this inside a charm. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to add curve, and I'm going to add a NURBS circle. And if I just open up the toolbox panel here, I can change the radius of the circle, and I'm going to set it at about 20. I'm going to set that at 11mm actually radius, so that's 22mm on the outside. And if I just go to view and top view, now I need to add some thickness to this, and I'm going to add a thickness, a cross section of 1.5 by 2mm. So that's 1.25mm there and 2mm deep. Now 2mm is the kind of default size that we work to, and as you can see, this object is 2mm as well. So the 1.5mm just gives this a bit of strength if it's going to be a charm. Now we need to, I want to resize this so that it fits inside. So it's S on the keyboard for scale, and just move it in until the object just fits inside the circle. Now if we do Control A and apply the scale here, nothing actually happens. If you've watched our other videos and used the parametric smart objects, when we do that, the cross section should return to 2mm. If we look here, we've got an extrude value of 0.9, so that's 0.9 above and 0.9 below the grid, and a bevel depth. The bevel is just this little edge here, if we zoom in, of 0.1, so they add up to 1mm, but that should be 1mm above and 1mm below. That isn't the case anymore, and that's because this is a 2D object. This is actually a Bezier curve, not a NURBS curve, and they work slightly differently. So what we need to do is we need to go to the main information icon, and we need to change this thickness back to 2 by typing it in. So Control A and applying the scale doesn't work because this is a 2D object. So if we just view that from the top now what I want to do is I'll just switch off the snap. I'm just going to try and reposition this so that it fits inside there. Now, if we're getting this printed at Shapeways, some of these parts are going to be too thin. This is 1mm. That's clearly below 1mm there, and if we just zoom in on it and use the ruler, we can see what the thickness is. It's 0.6. Now that's going to be rejected if you were to try and print this at Shapeways. If you've got your own printer, you're probably okay. So one of the things you need to do is to go into edit mode And if I select that control point there and G for grab, I can thicken up this area here. And I might also want to highlight those control points along the back of the object, because this is also quite thin. G for grab, and just pull that out and just thicken it up a little bit. And similarly here at the bottom, if we just pull that down, just thicken it up a bit, and perhaps just pull that one back inside. And then if we go up here as well, click a couple of control points and just make that a bit thicker, and grab and make that a little bit thicker as well. Now we may still find that there are issues here, and so you may have to come back and just make some further minor adjustments if you're using shape waves. But I think that's probably going to be okay. Now you could use the ruler to measure it, but I think that's probably all right. So what I want to do now is to add a connector at the top. I showed you that at the beginning. I want to have this wire connector, so what I need to do is append that. So I go to File and Append. Just go up through the menu system until you get to Groups folder. Click on 3D Templates Connectors, and I'm going to use a wire connector with a 1.5mm hole, and I always append the object. So I append that from the library. And we just want to move this up here. And we need to change the thickness of this, and I'm going to change it to 1mm by 2mm. So we've still got a 1.5mm hole in the center. Always double check that if you're going to change the value over here. And I just need to delete the bottom bit of this. So if I just go into edit mode and press X on the keyboard, just delete those vertices at the bottom. So my little connector there is 2mm deep like the outline. And essentially now what I want to do is to join these objects together. Now because this is a 2D object rather than a 3D object, we don't want to join these as curves. So what we want to do is to go to Tools, Object Tools, and convert that to a mesh, the connector. Highlight the ring around the outside, go to Tools, Object Tools, convert that to a mesh. Highlight the hieroglyphic, Tools, Object Tools, and convert that to a mesh. And then hold down the Shift key on the keyboard and highlight all three objects and go to Tools, Object Tools, and join them. And that is essentially our charm. So what we do then is export it. I usually use Wavefront OBJ format, and I tend to save to the desktop, and I saved this earlier as an Egyptian hieroglyphic charm, letter A from the Western keyboard, and you export that OBJ file. And then what you must always do when using Fluid Designer for 3D printing, you must always go to Netfab Basic and open up the project and just run the repair procedure. Obviously I did do this earlier, but you just click Automatic Repair and Execute and apply the repair and remove the old part, and then you just go to Part, Export, and export it as a wavefront object again. And that can then be sent to your slicer, or you can upload it to Shapeways and get it 3D printed at Shapeways. So that's how easy it is to create this Egyptian hieroglyphic charm using Fluid Designer for 3D printing. Thank you.